So you got to tell us, how well do you know Ben Johnson?
I met him in 2004. He was a freshman. I was a sophomore. He was one of my best friends. He was his roommate in his freshman year. He also lived with another one of my best friends for 3 years. I've known Ben Johnson for a long time. Just for the record, I have also picked him off more than once in practice. So there's that. I know that he wore. I know you guys don't know this. He wore. You know what number he was in college?
14? What number was he?
23.
Oh, wow.
He got to wear Carolina blue 23?
Yes, as a football player.
Yeah, right. But still, did you know what was was there Jordan love in there? Because
No, Jordan had nothing to do with the football program at all. 0%. It was Ben just had to get a number, and all the numbers were taken, and so they just gave him one.
okay, but because
but no,
because he chose Chicago in part because of his love for the town, and like he made a Cubs trip here with his family every summer. So I thought you were adding a layer to that. That's why I asked.
no, I was adding a layer to the fact that Ben really had to learn football to make sure that things worked. He was one of the signal callers we had on the sidelines. Played for Gary Tranquil. Played for Frank Signetti. This is a guy like I've known Ben for a long time. Ben, I mean, I guess what is it, 2025, and I've known Ben since 2004. He and I don't keep in touch as much as him and a couple of my other friends do, but he is someone that's always been in my purview. He is. I will say this, and I'm gonna front porch this as we get into it. Y'all don't mess up my boy. He is the nicest person that I've ever met in my life. He's the nicest football player I've ever played with in my life. Ben knows what he's doing. He loves football, and he really does want to do good things. I love me some Ben Johnson.
Was there a moment when you guys were together down there? And I know it's hard to project 20 years out, but was there a moment where you're like, oh, wait, this guy, what he thinks or how he feels about football, it's not just he just wants to be here. This is going to be a career for him.
There were two. One, so I got a guy that lives a mile away from me, my buddy Jay. He was Ben's freshman roommate. And Ben was thinking about quitting. And Jay was like, no, you belong in this space. And so Ben stayed and stuck with it and kept going. One. Two, watching the fake fumble to the throw to Sam Laporta, that is a play that we had at UNC. It wasn't the exact same play, but Gary Tranquil, he's got a lot of Gary Tranquil in his DNA. And Trank ran a play that we used to call sucker. Play was called sucker because everybody fell for it. And so I actually got in trouble for not falling for sucker after the third time I'd seen it in practice. But we were in a play called sucker where it was a fake screen to Watt to a deep ball to Jesse Holley. And we ended up, that helped us win a game against Miami. And that's like a huge thing. And Ben's working every single element that he's had Ben's a guy, and it's funny because my dad is taking my daughter, I think this weekend, to go get a new tackle box. Ben has a tackle box full of lures that are going to catch you some fish.
Michael Felder is on with us, and man, this is fun to talk about Ben Johnson from the Carolina days to now. By the way, Gary Tranquil worked with Nick Saban for multiple teams over several decades as an assistant and ended up as a head coach at Carolina during your guys' time there. One of those things that we're loving about Ben is he seems to really think about football from we got a lot of different schemes we could do. Let's look at our talent and just kind of do whatever is best for the talent. Like from that perspective, he's not like a one-trick pony as a strategy guy. It's just sort of a basic human sensibility that seems to be elevated with him. Does that jibe with your memories of him?
Yeah, that's what he does. That's what football is. And all he does is play football. I don't mean to be dismissive or anything. I just think what he does is play football. He wants his guys to go out there and play, and he understands. This is a guy that played on a football team that had, he played on a football team that had Gerald Sensabaugh, Matt Baker, Darian Durant, but we also had Jesse Holley, and we had for a little while at least, we had Darius Bowman, and you figure out how do we get to where we want to be, and I think that's the biggest thing for me is he's figuring out where he wants to be, and I think that's the interesting part. I heard you guys kind of on the was it rejoin talk about Joe Thuney and talk about Jonah Jackson, and like I think working with Dan Campbell was a huge thing for him because now he realized like big people are important and they do matter and we need these guys. But at the end of the day, also he recognizes talent and I don't know like I understand that you guys are divisional rivals, the Lions and the Bears, but Amon-Ra St. Brown, to me, that's the lesson that I take away. Amon-Ra St. Brown has never said a negative word about this guy. He is someone that is an earner, a worker, wants to work hard. And I think that watching your opponent, and a guy that's going to be a divisional opponent, speak highly of you is huge. And then on the flip side of that, my teammates, guys like Ryan Taylor, who played for the Green Bay Packers, which is for you guys another divisional opponent. Ryan Taylor, he's retired now, obviously, but Ryan Taylor being like, Ben's going to kill it. Like they just got to let him do what he does. I think this is it's a good fit. I think it's a to me, it's a scary fit, but it's because Ben wasn't as boisterous as some of the rest of us were.
So Felder, do you think it's a scary fit because what he might be able to do with Caleb Williams?
No, I think it's a scary fit because what Chicago might do to him.
We're gonna try to take it easy on him, man. Everyone's happy that he's here.
That's what I want. I want everybody to be happy that he's here, give him a chance, and let him do his thing. I think he can work miracles with Caleb Williams, if we're being honest. Like he is someone, and I thought Dan Campbell was a great foil for him because Ben, up until he got the Chicago job, you never heard Ben talk, right?
Correct.
So I think now he's got to talk. He's got to be out in front, and I think that's the part that might be a little bit more different for him. The football, don't worry about him with football. Do not worry about Ben Johnson with football. This man is going to destroy it. He is going to go out there, and he's going to make sure that Caleb is protected. We've already seen that right now in the offseason. We're probably going to see it more in the draft as well. Make sure this guy's protected. And when I say protected, I mean protected from an offensive line standpoint, but protected also from a defensive standpoint. And then you're going to load him up with weapons, and you're going to call plays that work. And I think that I'm not worried about that. I think Caleb Williams is going to be in a really good spot to where he's going to be able to go out, make plays, find ways to get guys the football in the best way, and also not have to be the guy that makes every single play. It's going to be, whether it's your tight ends, it's your wide receivers, it's all this stuff. You have DJ Moore still, right? Like this is a thing where you have an opportunity to call plays that allow for Ben's mind and for obviously his staff, for them to create space. And if you can create space in the NFL, then you create touchdowns.
I'd love to know what your scouting report on Caleb was coming out last year. And was there anything that you saw with him with the Bears that gave you any sort of pause on what you thought he could be coming out of USC?
Man, why are you doing this to me, dude? Come on, man.
Because you're the best at this.
Well, you're on in Chicago now. So.
You're the best at this, so I want to get your opinion because I trust it.
I thought it was reckless. I don't care about the nail painting. As you guys can see right here, my nails are painted as well. Like, I don't care. I don't care about the nail painting. I don't care about the writing, like F whatever it is on there. I don't care about that. I just thought he was a little bit reckless and relied a lot on his athleticism. And I think Ben has the ability, because Ben was also a quarterback in college. Ben can reel that in to make him have to get through his progressions, to make him have to get through what he sees. And I think Ben's really good at that. And that's the thing that Ben was really good at. He had to be good at in college. And so I think about that. I also think about the fact that Caleb does, but when you have preternatural, like this insane talent, I hope I use that word right.
You did. You did. He killed it. Crushed it.
Okay, good. So when you have talent that's like unbelievable, sometimes you rely on it. And I think that and I think about this a lot because if I'm not mistaken, Ben played a season for Butch Davis because he left. I left before him. Butch took a guy like was it Quinn? Butch took Quinn and made Quinn play real football instead of just using his talent. And I think that's another place where Ben can draw from. But the reality for me is he's going to make him have to play real football. And then guess what? When things get a little bit hairy, right? When things get hairy, when things get a little bit, what's the word? When things are
Off
a little,
schedule, off platform, he can make those plays.
I was going to say foobar, but yes.
it all speaks the same, man. But exactly what you're talking about, we're looking forward to it, and we know there's going to be growing pains with it for Caleb because they skipped a year of teaching it the right way. They blew it, man. Like they had a chance, and they gave him Shane Waldron, and then they gave him 2 other OCs, and they fired the whole staff in the middle, and they had a dumbass head coach who had no offensive philosophy whatsoever. So Ben's got a lot of work that he's got to do, and it's going to be fun to watch. We're talking to Michael Felder in the bleachers over at Bleacher Report and on Twitter as well. I saw that you wrote about safeties on your Substack today.
Yes.
And so like one of the positions that we're open-minded to in the first round with the Bears' first pick, maybe not a 10, maybe they'll trade back a little bit. Is there a safety that the Bears should invest in? We probably need a strong, you
need both because you have both of the safeties are on the last years of their deal.
And we don't know about the concussion future of Jaquan Brisker. So we probably need both. So tell us your favorite safety that the Bears should think about in round 1.
One, I love Brisker. I do love him. But if we're looking for a replacement, I would go RJ Mickens. And sure, you probably can get him a little bit later. I worked with R.J. Mickens' dad, Ray Mickens. Obviously, he's got the pedigree. And when we were doing the opening together, and the reality for me is he is really good as a downhill safety. I really love Elijah. Like, if you're looking for a guy that could kind of do a little bit, he's gonna I don't think he's gonna be the best tackler, Elijah Clark from Syracuse, but he's gonna be all over the field making plays, and I think that's a positive. Lathan Ransom is kind of a combo of both of those guys. He's a better tackler than Clark. He is aggressive. And then if you're looking for somebody that's going to play in that deep back, Jalen Reed. I like Jalen Reed, kid out of Penn State. And then obviously, what is his name? Nick Emanwari I think he's probably safety number 1. So we go from there if that's what you're looking for. But the reality is, I mean, let's load up the offensive line. And I think that's something that Ben's probably picked up from Dan Campbell. Like, let's load up. Like, they got Penei Sewell up there in Detroit, right? Like, let's load up on the offensive line.
Who are the linemen that you like?
Kid out of LSU.
Yeah, Will Campbell might last to 10.
Will Campbell, yeah.
He might. If Will Campbell's sitting there at 10, that's an Instagram for me.
Yeah, that's it. To me, that's the one for me because I think that it's hard to draft a guard that early, but I think Will Campbell is a guy that maybe you have to move him to guard, but at the end of the day, I think he is probably 1A, 1B offensive lineman. So I like him. Abdul Carter won't be there as an edge guy.
Yeah.
And so that's just the reality of the draft. Like you got to look at where things slot. And I also don't know what this quarterback situation looks like with Cam, because I don't think that Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders would have got picked before anyone that we saw go in the top 10 in last year's draft.
I agree with you. It's interesting to see what people are saying about Shadur now and where he might end up, in the Aaron Rodgers space of sitting there on draft night, not hearing his name called. And it's interesting because I feel like with him, I see a guy that doesn't have crazy measurables, which is weird thinking about a Sanders doesn't have crazy measurables.
Right.
But I found him to be a much better football player than I expected when he transferred out of Jackson State to Colorado. The way his game speed to me, Felder, is a lot better than what the stopwatch and what the radar gun says about him.
He's a quarterback. Who cares? Like that's the reality. But here's what I will say. I think that, and you mentioned Aaron Rodgers. You know what I will say? I think he's got a little bit of Randy Moss in there, right? And not like the off the field stuff. What I'm saying is teams are scared that not that he doesn't care. It's that he knows that he's an NFL player. He knows that he's an NFL player. And teams want you to be hungry. This is a guy that grew up, he's lived in mansions in his entire life. He knows he's going to be fine no matter what. He just likes playing football. He loves playing football. And the reality for me is if a guy grew up, he just loves playing football, I think that's an asset. But I think for owners, they want these guys that are hungry, guys that are, champing at the bit to get there. And Shadur doesn't, maybe in an interview, in a meeting, he doesn't have that for them. And then obviously he doesn't test off the charts. So what he does have is this love for football. He wants to be there. So at the end of the day, I think somebody, if he doesn't get picked into the back end of the first round, somebody's going to get a quarterback that is going to absolutely change their franchise, be able to go out and make plays, is super, like he's incredibly accurate. He is incredibly resilient. He is willing to stand in the pocket. And guess what? Every offensive line, if he gets picked in the back half of the first round, every single offensive line will be better than any offensive line that he's ever had. And so he'll have that opportunity as well. So I love Shadur. I don't know that again, and I mentioned this at the start where I said, I don't know that any of these guys would get picked before guys like Drake May or guys like the guys at the start of last year's draft, right? But I do Caleb, obviously,
Jaden.
Oh my God, what a year! And so I do think that what we're looking at is a guy he's gonna go to maybe a more beneficial situation.
Michael